Hello and welcome everyone to today's cloud coaching session on optimizing Oracle EBS, harnessing Oracle Integration Cloud's connectivity. Thank you for joining us. My name is Tara Van Cleve, and I am a marketing event manager for the developer initiative here at Oracle. And today we're excited to show you how to augment and extend your EBS experience with Oracle Integration Cloud. We'll also be recording the session, and you will receive the recording via the same email that you registered with for today's event. If you have any questions during the webinar, please drop them in the Zoom chat and Zoom Q&A areas, and we'll be ready to help answer them there. We've also set up a channel in our developer public Slack that's called Cloud Coaching North America that you can access at the QR code or at bit.ly/odevrel_Slack. And we'll leave that channel open after the event to contact us directly with any questions and to share resources like the replay as well, and information about upcoming events in the series. So today's webinar will be presented by Senior Cloud Engineers Aditya Trivedi and Sasanka Abhisingh. So without further ado, I will hand it off first to Aditya.
Okay, thank you, Tara. So hello, everyone. My name is Aditya, and today we will be going through the topic that Tara mentioned. The agenda is pretty straightforward. First, we'll take a look at a quick couple of slides on what Oracle Integration Cloud is, why to use Oracle Integration Cloud with EBS, right? Then we'll get into the demo. Then we have some use case samples. We've seen, other customers using OIC and EBS together. And then we'll talk about the Code Innovate program that we have. And then, we'll have some time for Q&A as well. So let's get started. For Oracle Integration Cloud, right? So when you think about Oracle Integration Cloud, it's not just one single product, right? Think of it as an umbrella of multiple products. The first one being the core integration engine, right? Here you build integrations to not only Oracle systems, as you can see in the icons, we have integrations to non-Oracle, we have adapters to non-Oracle systems as well. And, there's a possibility of connecting to the cloud as well as on-prem. So once you build the integrations, the next piece inside the umbrella of Oracle Integration Cloud is the human process automation that we have. Basically, this is used for building approval processes, business flows, and then you can leverage integrations. So process can call integrations, integrations can kick off processes. And the last one being Visual Builder, which is kind of a low-code, no-code sort of tool for building websites and web pages. And again, the idea of having all three under the same umbrella is that, they can communicate. So Visual Builder can kick off process flows, Visual Builder can call integrations, and all sorts of things, right? So let's get into some of the features for integration. So the core, it being, application integration, this allows you to connect to your apps, data, and services. All the tools within this umbrella are low-code web visual designer tools, right? So the screenshot you see on the bottom right-hand corner is of the integration. It's an example of an integration. So as you can see, it's a unidirectional flow, and it's built of a bunch of components, right? On the top, the screenshot that you see are the actions and the logic elements that we have. So while you're building the integration, you want to do a for each, you want to do an if, you want to do, send out a notification if something goes wrong, you want to call another integration, you want to call a JavaScript function. So all those things are available to help you design your integration. There are certain different flavors of integrations. So being event-based, if you want it to run on a particular schedule, you can have it run. And then, you can always do file-based integrations too. There are 75 plus prepackaged adapters that come with the tool itself. And then some of them are mentioned here in the slide. And again, as you can see, we have adapters not only into Oracle systems, but also non-Oracle systems. We've had customers use a lot of the productivity and connectivity to send out Slack messages in case of something goes wrong, or send out SMSs using Twilio adapters, right? But for this particular webinar, our main focus is going to be the EBS adapter. And in case you don't see an adapter for systems that you have, we always have, the technology adapters like REST, SOAP, FTP, and all sorts of others. Another feature that comes with OIC is the secure file server. So this is 500 GB of storage, which is basically free. You don't have to pay for it. And the common use cases we've seen is, if you have communication with trading partners, they're sending you files, you want to send them files, you could leverage this file server to, once you generate extracts from your systems, maybe EBS or, cloud, you can put these files on the secure servers, and then, they can communicate accordingly. Of course, integration with SaaS applications. And then if you have any SFTP servers lying around, why maintain and pay for it when if the sole purpose is for integrations, then you can kind of do a lift and shift, right? So let's get into some common use cases we see with integration cloud, right? The first and foremost being the one that we're going to take a look at today is real-time or schedule-based data sync between systems, right? Let's say you have EBS, you're in the process of migrating to ERP, and it's not going to be a big bang, right? You're not just going to say, hey, turn off the switch on EBS and turn it on for the SaaS product. It's going to be module by module migration. And while you're doing that, you want them both to be in sync, right? And in that case, OIC can play a big role here to keep the sync between the systems. Another common use case we've seen is with the DB. So EBS comes with its own database, right? You can basically interact via a database adapter to that database. Pull the data out, put it into like a data warehouse for some analytics and all sorts of things, right? So again, OIC can be the middleman to kind of transfer the data between two databases or systems. And then the last one is that we've seen a lot is file-based, right? You call an API, get some data, you generate a file and put that extract out into some SFTP, or you put that extract into an ERP system or a SaaS system to load the data, right? So at a high level, in terms of the editions, we've kept it simple. It's just standard or enterprise. Almost all of the adapters are the same between the editions, except for the on-prem connectivity adapters like EBS, JD Edwards, Siebel, and SAP. So in this case, since our focus is on the EBS adapter, Enterprise Edition is the way to go. So just I wanted to give you a high level on the on what OIC is. Now let's just talk about why use this, right? Why use OIC and why extend EBS using OIC, right? So number one, if you're thinking of communicating with EBS via REST, SOAP, any sort of endpoints, right? We have advantages of using the OIC's adapter, right? Why? So if you wanted to call an API, you would either have to, and this is considering you don't have, any sort of developer or library or language experience, you would have to learn the language. Or if you know the language, let's say you want to do this in JavaScript, you need to learn a library to call the API, right? Or you have to hire a developer. Number two, you have to go and find the EBS documentation, find the APIs, understand if it's a get call, it's a post call, what sort of method, operations are supported. Then the next step is to go and find out all the input payloads, all the output payloads, like, what I need to send to it, what's going to come out. Then also think about authentication, right? Is it basic auth? Is it OAuth? What's token based? Where do I get the token, right? All sorts of things. And then after all this is done, then you start to write the actual code, call the APIs. And once you call the APIs, it sends you XML, it sends you JSON. You got to parse that, right? And then taking that data, and then you do whatever you're, meant to do. All of this is kind of encapsulated inside an adapter, right? So I'll show this once we get into the console, but at a high level, all of this is basically encapsulated in the adapters. Another thing why to use OIC, I would say, is we have recipes, right? So recipes are basically, integrating different applications that deal with, CRM, ERP, HCM, and all sorts of recipes we have. Think of a recipe as a template or a pre-assembled solution that gives you a head start in building your integrations, right? So you can start off with the recipe and then customize it as to fit your needs and your requirements, right? And we keep adding these, so PMs, devs, they keep identifying common integrations, integration patterns. They keep adding more and more recipes. So I would highly encourage, once you get OIC instantiated, you want to start developing, always just go and take a look at the recipe list so that if it's there, it's going to give you that, starting point. Okay. And then to kind of sum everything together, right? So why OIC, right? So number one, it's a pure PaaS solution, right? So there's no infrastructure management for you, right? It's all Oracle managed. Um, you get quarterly updates, even the file servers managed, so you don't have to manage that. There's rich adapter support, right? So, the comparison I did, all that complexity is encapsulated within the adapter, so you don't have to worry about that, right? And then there's always upgrades, right? So, you have some systems, they're upgrading constantly, their APIs are changing. The adapters will eventually reflect, right? So we have cycles, quarterly updates you get, and then the adapters also update so to reflect whatever the target system has updated to. OIC is developer friendly, right? So all the tools within the umbrella are visual mappers, visual based, drag and drops, right? Even your citizen developers can develop it. You don't need someone with a lot of language or programming background. There's DevOps support, right? So you can export an integration from one environment, import it into another environment. And then, of course, we have accelerators and recipes that I talked about. And then last but not least, the monitoring and troubleshooting, right? So you have a dashboard where you can see how many messages got consumed, how many messages failed, what's going on at a high level, as well as you can do detailed level tracking. And all of this we will see in the demo, but you can see payloads of XML or JSON that are being passed between the systems, right? And in cases of errors, you can always notify the right personnel so that they can come and make the changes. So all of that is also built in to this one tool, right? And then I also wanted to mention that 2023 Magic Quadrant Gartner, Oracle was named the leader for integration platform as a service, so basically for OIC. Okay, so before we get into the demo, I just have a couple of more slides just to make you understand, the options that we have to connect to EBS from Oracle integration, right? So within OIC, we have the EBS adapter. So in case you want to connect to your app layer of EBS, right, which is the ISG, which is REST APIs, SOAP APIs, you will use the Oracle EBS adapter, which will kind of help you with the payloads and all sorts of things that I talked about earlier. But if you're a DBA, you are running queries already on the EBS database, and you want to connect to the database layer, then you can use the Oracle database adapter. Right? But in this particular demo, we will be focusing on the EBS adapter, right? So just a quick side on this. You have options, right? So you can, if your app layer is public accessible, OIC can directly call the APIs. If it is private behind a firewall inside your network, you can use agents to communicate. Basically, agents broker the communication between EBS and Oracle Cloud, Integration Cloud. And then, there's another option of if you want real-time business event triggering from EBS, like when you book an order, you want to do something, you want the integration to basically run, then that's also an option. if you use the EBS adapter. Okay, and then, so last slide, I promise, before we get into the demo. So for the demo flow today, I have an EBS instance, I have an Oracle Integration Cloud instance, and I have an ERP Cloud instance, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to first go inside the EBS instance, create a sales order manually via the form. Then I'm going to run an integration that gets the sales order, checks if the status is booked, right? If it is, then it will go and create an ER invoice inside ERP Cloud. If it's not, then it's just going to ignore and not do anything. Basically, just log a message saying that, hey, status is not booked, so I'm not going to create this. So yeah, that's that. Let's jump over to the actual console, right? So before I get into the demo, I quickly wanted to show you how the adapter documentation looks like. So when you go into the documentation for the adapters of Oracle Integration Cloud, each adapter has its own set of documents, right? So whenever you're trying to connect to a system, I would highly recommend the first step is always come to this documentation because based on the system, the steps or the prerequisite steps, they differ wildly, right? So in case of EBS, we have a whole section of how to set up, enable the Oracle eBusiness Suite adapter for integrations, right? Depending on the versions, right? So for Oracle EBS release 12.2, there's certain things you need to do. 12.1.3, there's certain things you need to do, right? So a lot of extensive documentation on what to do so that your EBS environment is ready to make the connection to OIC, right? And once you do all these setup tasks, the next step is to actually build the connection, right? So again, there's lots of documentations on how to create a connection, what to put in each field, how the URL looks like, right? There's an example there. And then there's also some common patterns, right, of using the EBS adapter. So there's lots of examples of what we've seen this adapter be used as by customers, right? Trigger based, or you want to call PL SQL APIs, you want to call a concurrent program. So all those examples are right here, so you can follow them. But yeah, let me get into the Oracle Integration Cloud page. Let me go to the home page so that I can just show you this. So once you get into the home page, the recipes and accelerators I mentioned are all listed here. You can do view all, and then you can search based on the ones that you want. But we're more interested in the integration piece, so let's go ahead into the design. And the first step before building an integration is building the connection, right, as we discussed. So you would come into the connections page, you would click on create, search for EBS. I have one already, so I'm not going to do that. But I wanted to show you how I did this, right? So once you open it, again, you see there's only 3 boxes I need to fill. The connection URL, username, and password. And that's all it takes, right? In my case, EBS is private, right? So I use an agent to connect to it. But in your case, if it's public, you would select this option, right? So after you've filled all these details out, you would hit test. This would basically turn from draft to configured. And here the percentage would turn into 100%. Once you have that, then it means it's ready to use, right? So you've configured the connections to any systems you want based on the adapters, right? And then once they're configured, so this is my EBS adapter, and here on the top you see is my ERP adapter that I'm going to use. This is also in configured state. Okay. And just to show you the difference, right? So when I get into the ERP adapter, you see there's a little bit more options, and again, all this depends on the target system. You'll see, different options based on that. Okay. And then the next step would be to go into the integrations and actually build the integration, right? So when you click on create, you see three options: application, schedule, and event. Application means if you want to expose this integration that you're building as a REST endpoint or a SOAP endpoint so that a third-party application can consume your endpoint, then application is the way to go. Now, if you want your integration to run on a specific schedule every day, every night, every 15 days, whatever it may be, you can use the schedule based. And then event is just for the internal publish, subscribe event thing. So yeah, let me go ahead. I'll come back to EBS, right? I'm logged in, I'm on the sales order page. Let me just go ahead and create a sales order. So I'll say customers ABC application software. I'll give the order type standard, right? I'll go ahead into the line items. I'll add an item here. I want the standard desktop, right? Let's just say I want one quantity, right? And then all of this is done. If I click on save, and if I go to order information, you'll see that the status is currently entered, right? And the order number is 69341, right? So let's go back to the integrations, right? So here I have an integration that gets the sales order from EBS, right? So it's exposed as a REST endpoint, right? It accepts the order number as an input. Using the order number, I'm using the EBS adapter that I configured to call an API to get the sales order details, right? So each adapter that you configure will kind of bring like a installation wizard, right? When you install a new software, right? Similar to that. And again, the options differ from adapter to adapter. So in this case, it's going to ask me for the product family. I know I'm looking for sales orders, so that's why I did order management. Then it asks for product. In this case, again, order management because looking for orders. The next step is what type of interface, right? In this case, I just kept all because it's a PL/SQL API. And then I search for the sales order service, right? So once you click that, it even gives you a description on this API, allows you to perform various operations. And then you click continue, which will then actually go and fetch all of the methods that are available within this package, right? So in this case, I'm trying to do get, right? I'm trying to get details of a sales order. So I selected get sales order service. And again, there's description on, what it is and how to use it and why, in which cases you shouldn't use it and all sorts of things, right? And then once you click continue, this gives you a summary of everything that you're trying to do, right? I'm trying to select order management. I'm trying to use get order, and then the pattern is synchronous, right? And then once you click on finish, a mapper is automatically generated for each node that you add, right? Because sometimes there are input parameters to this call, right? In this case, there is, right? So a mapper gets generated. Mappers are basically visual, mappers on the left, you see the sources, on the right, you see the destination, right? So target. So basically, I'm calling the EBS API to get orders, right? And because I used the adapter and selected the right options, it created this schema automatically, right? I don't have to go into EBS. I don't have to look at any documentation to understand, what the input parameters are, right? This was auto-generated by OIC because we used the adapter. And then, there's lots of things that goes into calling the API. And once you kind of configure all that, what I'm doing is I'm assigning the order number from my query parameters, right? So this is exposed as a REST endpoint. I'm taking in the sales order number. So whatever the user provides me, I'm just saying, hey, map this one-to-one to this, right? And mapping is pretty straightforward. Like, so just a drag and drop. And when you let it go, it kind of creates the mapping. Well, and then the next question comes, yeah, this is good. I can do mapping, right? But what if I need to do some sort of calculation? What if I need to break a string? What if I need to concat some strings? How do I do that, right? So that's where this option comes into the picture, where we have functions to do all sorts of things, right? We have conversion functions, converting numbers to strings and all sorts of things, right? We have date functions. Um, we have string functions, right? That do concatenation, that do formatting, all sorts of things, right? And at the end, of course, if you don't see a function, or if it's getting too complex to use multiple functions to achieve what you want, you can always add a user-defined function. So, so that's that. That's with the mappers. So coming back to the integration, what I'm doing is I'm getting the EBS details, sales order details from EBS. And then I have a switch, right? I'm saying, hey, what is the status of the sales order, right? I'm saying if the status is booked, only if the status is booked, I want to create an AR invoice, right? And this is my adapter that I configured for ERP Cloud, right? And as you can see, there's a mapper right before it, the same way we had it before the EBS, because again, we need to pass in a lot of parameters into this, right? And then I'm saying if it's not booked, if it's anything else except for booked, just go ahead and log order number is not booked yet, as you can see here. And then towards the end, I'm just returning the sales order details back to whoever's calling me, right? So that's basically the integration that I have. The list of all the connections that you configure within Integration Cloud are specified here, right? So all the ones that went to 100% and the configured state, you can see here. And then to use it, it would just be a drag and drop, right? So you can decide, hey, yeah, after the ER invoice, I want to do something else. Or after the EBS call, I want to do something else, right? So all of that is available here. The flow control and actions and all of that is available in this menu where I picked switch. Basically, that's my if. I can do a while, I can do for each, I can do parallel processing, I can say wait for some time, then do an action. I can set out notifications, right? I can assign variables. So all sorts of things I can do while I'm trying to design my integration flow. So once you have this whole thing configured, right? I have one that is active, so you can run and test the integration out, right? So this tool also provides a test UI where you can come in and test the integration. So you don't have to kind of take the URLs and go outside and use Postman or some other tool, right? So when you try to run this, here is where you would see the endpoint metadata. So let's say, yeah, we built this integration, it's all running. Now I want to give this to someone who can call this. How do I do that, right? So that's where the endpoint metadata comes into the picture. You can use this to send the endpoint URL. That's your endpoint URL that you send to someone else who wants to consume this API. This also gives you, the details about what the query parameters are, what the response sample is, and then, of course, if you're using Swagger or OpenAPI, you can kind of use those too. But so let's go ahead and run this. So it's 69341. I say 69341, and let's go ahead and run it. And while we run this, it's pretty quick. So on the right side, you will see the logs for the run of the integration, right? This is where the debugging thing comes in. In this case, this worked, but in cases where something fails, you want to see how much time it's taking between each step, right? How much time did it take for Integration Cloud to call EBS, right? Then you can open this menu. Sorry, it didn't load, but yeah, open this menu and you'll be able to see that the message that I sent to EBS and the message that I received by EBS, there's 19 millisecond difference, right? So that's how much time it took for this step. So again, there's lots and lots of capabilities within the tool to help you build efficient integrations, right? And then you can always, of course, see the payloads. In this case, the payload is too large, but if I download it, it's going to be an application XML payload that's coming back. And I can, view what was sent to EBS and what came back, right? I can also click into the instance ID, right? When I do that, this gives me a view of the path that this integration took, right? So yep, it received my order number. It called the EBS API to get the order information, and then it checked, right, whether the status was booked or not. In this case, it's just entered, so it went to otherwise, and it did not go through this flow, right? In cases where something fails, like let's say this logger, for some reason it failed, right? You would see that this would be marked in a red box, and then this other path would not be completed, right? So, and then you can always like click on, sorry, but so you can always click on these steps to take you to whatever step you want to identify more, right? And if I look at the logger, it printed out the message saying it's not booked yet, right? And it exited. So now let's go ahead and actually book the order, right? Okay, so once I click on book, it says order was booked. And if I come back to this one, 69341, and if I run it again, then this time it should take the path with the booked status. It's taking longer, which is good because it seems to be going to the ERP to actually create the API, the invoice. My bad. Yeah, and then if you refresh the logs, you will see that the message routed through this instead of otherwise this time, and then you can see the call that was made to create the AR invoice, right? And then if you look at the wire message received back from the call, you'll be able to see the data that came back from the call to the AR invoice, right? And this is what we're going to use, right? So transaction number is what we're going to use to search, right? So let me go into ERP Cloud. Let me get into receivables, billing, and if I go to manage transactions, and I can say this, search for this transaction number. Okay, and then you'll see that this came in right today, right, 31st. Yep. And if I open the details, you'll see the customer's ABC applications, what we selected there. There's just one line for one quantity, and the unit price looks good. I added the description of the EBS inventory ID. You can, map whatever you want. And then there's a field called, okay. And then there's a field called cross-reference, right? So in the cross-reference, you'll see that I also put in the sales order number. So there's lots of fields where you can kind of cross-reference the two, so that there's a link between them. But yeah, that was the main integration that I wanted to show. And also, I also wanted to show you the benefits of having the other products within the same umbrella, right? So since I have Visual Builder right here, so I just click on it, it's going to open that Visual Builder page. I went ahead and created a lookup app, right? We know how how it's kind of difficult to go into EBS and search for these things, right? You need to have a certain version of Firefox. You need to install that certain Java version and all sorts of things to just open this and see that, right? So what I did is I just took like 5-10 minutes tops. I put in a couple of text fields, just dragged and dropped in, and I just built a lookup page for the EBS order, right? So again, 69341. If I say 69341 tab, now this is gonna call that integration. Actually, it's a different integration which doesn't go and create the ER invoice because we don't want to do it twice. But this one just returns the EBS details, right? So I just took the payload that was being returned and just quickly, showed it in the table, that item number, the unit price, the status, and all sorts of things, right? So it's a big, big JSON payload, and you can decide the things that you need to show. But just kind of wanted to show you this as an art of possibility, right? Okay, so that was all I had in terms of the demo. So I want to hand it back to Sasanka for the next piece.
Yeah, sure, Aditya. Thank you. So we have like a multiple use cases which is used for the customers. So we have like a two different use case we can discuss during this time. Yeah, go to the next slide. Yep. The first use case is how integration cloud service integrates order management. And it's like another way of leverage EBS adapter via events. So this is like a real-time event kicking off for an integration. So what we do, like order management, they use like a business event trigger to point out, send notification to each subscriber. When the order status is changes, the subscriber can request to get more details from another sales order. So what it's kind of a business event is like it's an occurrence in the e-business suite that may trigger the next business process or action. So here I have like a sample flow we did it in the customer. Yeah, for the second use case, how we can integrate EBS into the other cloud services such as Visual Builder Cloud Service, ERP Cloud, Autonomous Data Warehouse, and Analytics Cloud. For Visual Builder Cloud Services for a front-end customer user interface where the customer order items are using the placed from the company's online store. And once the order is placed, the integration triggers and the sales order is generated in the EBS. Once a sales order is generated in EBS, then it will send it to the ERP cloud and generate the account receivable invoice. After that, customer info and sales order account receivable invoices are sent to the autonomous data warehouse. So finally, from the Oracle Analytics data visualizations can be built and display the advanced analytics on the entire order to the cache process spanning multiple systems. So those two mostly we can see common use cases for the EBS. Yeah, for the next slide, we'll share a little bit more about our Code Innovate program. If you never heard about Code Innovates, we can go a little bit about Code Innovate program, how we are going to do that. Normally, when you can consider the Legoland, something you need to do before leave to another class we have called the master builder class, and each kit goes inside to receive a small clear bag with the deassembled Lego pieces. And after that, like a 45 minutes, somebody like a gentleman came and show how to put parts together. So it's like a simple way of like a form of what Code Innovate program is look like. So you can go to the next slide. So when you consider what is the Code Innovate program is look like, it's a 5-half-day online event to jumpstart to Oracle Cloud development. So you can get hands-on experience on cloud services, and our engineer work online with your team. And we designed this program for the ground up to facilitate rapid knowledge share and leverage your use case to build a prototype. So obviously, when you are developer, you have like when you're trying to learn something new, you have many questions. So our engineers can answer those questions in a couple of minutes. If they need to research, you can go and watch how they going to research and solve the same problem. So it's a no cost, and there are a couple of minimum requirements you need to be. Yeah, so here in for the Code Innovate experience, we have like a what we are doing, like you need to bring your own use case. Like if you have like a company, you guys are working on a project. So we work as a use case for this Code Innovate. This is not like simply we are not giving any kind of a demo or any kind of a thing. Just like we are using your use case and building the prototype. It's basically the rapid knowledge share with Oracle engineers. We have like a worked with you guys, we are engineers, and with the 4 hour each day. So what we are doing, like we are building a first prototype. So then you can go over there, and if you have more time, you can go with the live product. And if you need to contact for a schedule and coordinate event, so you can use this email address, or we can communicate with you and enter your email and Zoom chat so we can contact you guys. Yep.
And I will go ahead and close out for the day. Thank you again so much, and we hope to see you at the next one.